NOLA Motorsports Park, just outside of New Orleans, Louisiana, is the site of round 6 of the championship for GT America, powered by AWS. It's a unique blend of GT3 and GT4 machinery, but single driver and sprint race format that leads to thrills for 40 minutes from the drop of the green to the checkered flag. Yesterday we saw thrilling racing here down on the Bayou, and we get to do it again for race 2 of the weekend coming up in just a few short minutes. Hello and welcome. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. Amanda Busick is down in the pit lane. Thrilled to get going yet again for GT America here at NOLA Motorsports Park, a venue that was not on the schedule for this championship last year. But I'd say it looks like it could be a fixture moving forward based on what we've seen so far this weekend.
Yeah, admittedly, first time here for GT America, but a lot of the drivers did compete here in other classes, so they have experience. But this championship, Ryan, is not disappointed this year. Right from the get-go on the streets of St. Petersburg, we saw sensational action, and that has repeated itself at Sonoma and again here this weekend. Megan Gidley leads the championship, got another victory here yesterday, looking super solid aboard that TKM Motorsports Mercedes, but so many other fierce competitors in this field.
No question, but if you look at the top 3 rows of the starting grid, the common denominator is Mercedes-AMG. 5 of the top 6 starters are in that Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo platform. It has been the car of choice for the season, but certainly here at NOLA.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those cars that seems to tick all of the boxes. I don't think it matters which circuit you go to. It seems to be right at the sharp end of the field. It dominates the field in terms of numbers as well. In GT4, it's the Aston Martin that has a similar theme there as well. So expect those 2 manufacturers to be filling out most of the spots on their respective podiums. But nonetheless, there's some other really fast cars in this field as well to certainly give consideration to.
No doubt about it. The top non-Mercedes finisher in SRO 3 yesterday, Adam Adelson. He finished 3rd. He will start a little bit further back than you'd like in P5 here today. Meanwhile, in GT4, great mix of cars as ever, but Aston Martin seems to be at the forefront of any conversation we have surrounding the GT4 class.
Yeah, and Roche West, great victory yesterday, and with that he grabs the championship lead, a track that he knows certainly very well.
Gidley and Daskalos, that's your front row. Gidley, the winner yesterday in SRO 3, then Bartone, the impressive rookie, and George Kurtz, the reigning series champion. Mentioned Adam Adelson earlier, had a great day yesterday in Fanatec GT. He'll start alongside Todd Treffert. Johnny O'Connell and Mirko Schultes make up row number 4 with Andy Wilczek and Alex Vogel back in row 5. Then we get to the GT4 grid where Rob Holland had a rapid Porsche yesterday. He starts in front of a horde of Aston Martins. Elias Saba will start 2nd. Bell, Schwest, the winner yesterday, starting 3rd and 4th respectively. Then Coleman and Newell, Gaples and Jaffe. And a little bit further down, we find Shani and Keebler at the back of the grid. Earlier in the weekend, our Amanda Busick took a tour of the paddock, and she gives us an idea of some of the things to watch for in our race today.
We're ready for stop number 3 of the GT America powered by AWS 2023 season right here in New Orleans. And if you look at a summary of the season so far, you had St. Petersburg, Sonoma, but all eyes come in here on Mo Gidley. He is the points leader in GT3, but there's 22 cars on property in this mixed class racing to see what is at hand here in the Bayou. While Mo Gidley has a sizable points lead in GT3, it is Anthony Bartone who's going to be having eyes on him this weekend. He comes off of his first win in Sonoma. He picked up the CrowdStrike fastest lap in St. Petersburg. Only a 9-point difference between him and Jason Daskalos, who finds himself 2nd in points. But being that this is the first stop for GT America in New Orleans, will veteran status such as Jason Daskalos reign supreme here this weekend? 4 races in, and Jason Bell is the leader in the GT4 class, but this points battle is only separated by 5 points in the top 3, so surviving the swamp is key this weekend.
Appreciate that, Amanda. Great field of cars. Some really good competitors in this field as well, lined up behind that Toyota GR Supra safety car. Now these guys working really hard to develop that temperature in the tires, in the brakes. No tire warmers in this championship. There's a look at Johnny O'Connell. How cool is it to have Johnny O back in this paddock? So much history in this paddock going back to the World Challenge days.
Oh, he's a legend, 4-time champion, multiple Le Mans victories, and great to see him back. That Ferrari's a little bit older in the tooth than some of the more current generation GT3 machinery that he's up against, and had a solid start to the weekend, but faded a little bit. I'm sure they've been tweaking out that Ferrari, give a little bit more tire life late in the going, kind of stalled out there about 25-30 minutes into this race, went backwards a little bit, you know. But Johnny is feisty. That team will be working hard to give him a little sharper piece of equipment for today.
That's for sure. It's a fun mix in this SRO3 class, which is GT3 cars from multiple generations, everything from the most up-to-date and modern GT3 car, much like this Mercedes you see here, back to a Ferrari from several generations ago, the 458. Well, since then, we've seen several iterations of the 488, now the 296 that's racing in Fanatec GT. So that is one of the older cars on the grid. The Callaway Corvette behind certainly is too, but still fun equipment and a great place to find a chance to go and race with some of these cars. They're not just museum pieces. They still have a place on the racetrack, and it's right here in GT America, powered by AWS. Let's talk about the track here, Calvin. Nearly 3 miles, 2 3/4 in length, very flat, very abrasive.
It is. I think certainly tire degradation has always been a point of conversation when you come into this weekend. But the first sector, that's where the prime overtaking opportunities exist. Certainly the brake zone down into turn 1, but also into those long duration hairpin turns, turn 3 and 4.
Lights are off, the safety car pulls away. Now we wait for the field to enter the VP acceleration zone. Memo Gidley, as the pole sitter, has the right to control this start. As he enters the zone, he can start to accelerate at his discretion, and he does so. There's the green flag. Great start from Gidley. Dascolo slips back a little bit. That looks like it's going to provide a chance for Bartone to go on the attack, and George Kurtz might be thinking about making it 3 wide as well.
Yeah, a little bit feisty there between the Mercedes, and looked like Kurtz swept across there, may have grabbed P3 as they went through turn 1.
Here's the GT4 start. Rob Holland, by virtue of setting the fastest lap of the race yesterday, he's on pole in the Roadtech Porsche. Look at this start from Gidley. All of that experience, putting it to use on cold tires. Dascolo's second rather. Kurtz has come up to third around Bartone. Not sure how he got that done, but George Kurtz is in podium position.
Yeah, we saw him try to make that move around the outside in turn 1. Trevor's had a solid start as well, running there in the top 5 in the black and blue Mercedes, number 41.
He's got Adelson, who was on the podium yesterday, behind him in the Porsche from Wright Motorsports. Great start from the SRO3 camp. Gidley consolidating that lead. It just continues to grow. Dascalos looked like he might be vulnerable into turn 1, but he's been able to fend off the challenge.
Yeah, he has. Didn't have the best launch off the line, but certainly, as we know with Jason, he's not afraid to get his elbows out and be aggressive there and still reclaim that top 2 position. But as we saw yesterday, I just think Gidley really prepares his tires very well, and he's leapt off like a scalded cat here.
That he has. Now we look a little further back. Adelson, O'Connell in the Ferrari, Schultes in the Callaway Corvette. Behind them, Wilczek for Flying Lizard and Alex Vogel. But at the very front, leading the first lap, it is Memo Gidley, ex-IndyCar star, long career in sports cars, and a frequent visitor to the podium in GT America over the past several seasons. Didn't see him last year, but 2 years ago we had a partial campaign in the old Bentley and was quickly a winner once again. And that continues as he steps into this Mercedes this year.
George Kurtz here looking pretty racy. Didn't have a great day yesterday, both in this race and the Fanatec GT results as well. So looking to turn this weekend around a little bit. He knew coming into this championship season on the back of his championship dominant win last year, it was going to be a different kettle of fish in terms of how many Mercedes are in this field and the depth and quality of the field as well in terms of the driver lineups.
Dascalos, a veteran, going back several years, lots of experience in Vipers. He's been really quick this season. Ran that old Audi last year, the kind of previous generation R8. And had some success, had some good results. Really strong on the street courses, Jason Dascalos.
Yeah, he really is, and they had success immediately. He damaged his primary car in practice at St. Petersburg, had to build up the second spare chassis, and what did he do? Well, he went out and won. So He's just a gritty competitor. I love the way he goes about his racing. He's found a really neat relationship with Nick Short with CRP. They're now based down in his neck of the woods, so it's a really good chemistry working with that group.
That's right. Right now fighting with George Kurtz, the two guys that were first and second in points last year in the SRO3 class. Back to GT4 we go, and Rob Holland started on pole. He continues to hold that lead. Elias Sabo running right behind him. Then you find Todd Coleman, who looks like he has been able to get around the winner from yesterday, Ross Schwest.
Yeah, some surprising moves here early in the race. We see Jason Bell well down the order.
Yeah.
He didn't have a really great start to this race. They're lined up P3 on the grid.
Bell was second yesterday to Schwest. Holland finished third. We've got a totally mixed up group here. Tony Gaples on that last lap made a pass for fifth in the Black Dog Camaro, able to get around Jaffe in his Porsche.
Tony racing here for the first time. They did do a few test laps here in preparation for the season, but gradually trying to get that Camaro working a little bit better. It's been a few seasons since they campaigned that and getting used to what is for them a new Pirelli tire. And Ray Sorensen, just an ace team manager and crew chief there for Tony Gaples. They'll get it right.
Look back at Ray's resume. He's worked with drivers like Nigel Mansell and Mario Andretti, Michael Andretti back at Newman Haas in Indy cars. Suppose you're doing something right if you've been able to work with that group.
Yeah, he's just a really calm individual, fun personality, and just brings a ton of experience to the table for Tony to really use that as a sponge.
2.6 seconds the lead. Gidley to Daskalos. Then it's Kurtz and Bartone. Let's hear more about our race leader with Amanda.
It just seems like Memo Gidley is taking all of these wins just one at a time and so full of emotion every time. He ended up making a social media post yesterday that said, "Dang, it feels good to win." And what I loved about that is one of the comments, and congratulations to Memo, was no other than Kyle Lowe, who reached out to Memo to congratulate him on his win. Well, Memo went back and forth with Kyle and said, "Well, good job to you too, buddy." And Kyle said, "Yeah, I led it green flag to checkered." Well, prior to this race start, Memo's team radioed over to him that Kyle Lowe won yet again in the TCX class in our TC America race just ahead of this one.
Thanks, Amanda. Really cool story. And neat that Memo's paying attention to the other classes here, looking for up-and-coming talent like Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool to see someone like Memo Gidley have this second phase to his career. We all talked about his, his phenomenal single-seater progress in the early days of his career. Had that monster crash at Daytona several years ago. Now had to go through tremendous pain and agony to really get back on his feet, literally. And now behind the wheel, been given this opportunity with TKM Motorsports. So it's a beautiful thing. As we see a great battle here. This is Bartone looking at the inside. This didn't work well yesterday. Actually had a little bit of argy-bargy with George Kurtz that drew a penalty and a time penalty awarded to him at the finish and conclusion of race one. But he'll learn from that. He'll recognize the opportunity. Still got to be hard and aggressive and go for it, but just be a little bit more circumspect if that situation arises again.
You know, it strikes me when we were talking to Kurtz and he was talking about how much more difficult this championship got. I think he was thinking about the Andy Pilgrims and the Johnny O'Connells and the Memo Gidleys. I'm not sure that Anthony Bartone or Todd Treffert were quite on his radar, but these two, very new to this. Todd with a lot of experience in historic racing, but Bartone incredibly raw. They have been really quick all season.
They really have. For Todd Treffert, I mean, he has come alive here this weekend. We know of his previous experience, has a lot of seat time in different types of machinery, but this transition over to GT3, he's took to it very naturally. This is a really strong run that he's having here in the early phase of race 2 this weekend.
That team got a boost. They put Kenton Cook, who we'll see in probably GT4 America later on today, in their cars for some of the testing earlier this week, just to give them a little bit of a baseline, to put a pro in there with a lot of experience to help drive them from a setup perspective. Only did a handful of laps in each of the two chassis, but it sounds like that's really helped them dial in the setup for both of their drivers.
Well, sometimes you just want to take away the uncertainty. You may be thinking something's not quite right. If someone just comes into the car with experience, says that's how it should feel, then you just go about your own business, thinking about your driving, not worrying, well, is the car right? Is it doing the right thing? That can just kind of create confusion. So it's really a great idea to put someone like Kenton Cook behind the wheel.
Tough break for Bartone, just as we're talking about him. This just came in from race control. Drive-through penalty, pre-grid procedures.
Wow, here he goes.
Was the infraction. You just saw him take that trip down towards the pits, and that takes him out of podium contention. He was running 4th at the time.
A similar issue at Sonoma, as I recall. But anyway, he'll try and regroup here, but it's about a 40-second time loss just driving down pit lane as others are hustling around this circuit at speed.
And he'll need some help, it would appear, from a full course yellow to get back into the mix. Here we go in GT4. 3 cars, nose to tail for the top 3 spots. Holland is the interloper. He's got the Porsche there with the throng of Aston Martins running right behind him. 3 Astons stacked up behind the Cayman.
Yeah, he's got his hands full, that is for sure. A lot of fast cars in this field this year. Todd Coleman, great start to the race yesterday, and he's really finding his feet. I think this is going to be a fun year to watch Todd Coleman just really grow and mature in terms of his racecraft.
Holland, a driver with so much experience. A lot of racing in Europe, including British touring cars for a number of years. Had a shop based at the Nürburgring, a whole program based around the Nürburgring and the endurance racing there for a long time. But came back stateside a few years back when this championship debuted, in fact. And oh, he's going to like this. Right behind him, here comes Coleman knifing up the inside, working on Sabo. These are not teammates, by the way. Sabo drifts a little bit wide, and the two might have touched wheels a couple of times.
Wow, they're not giving each other much breathing room through there. Elbows are out, certainly. Little touch. Elias elects to give it up as to ride the curve a little bit. Nice move by Todd Coleman. Pretty aggressive and determined. I like it.
Coleman had a tough day yesterday. Was there a penalty of some kind for him too, I think? He was running well and dropped back for some reason. Exactly what it was escapes me, but...
Had a little off. He ended up with a lot of splitter damage at the end of the race.
That's right.
I think there were
That's
2
what it
moments
was.
in the race, actually.
Yes, and the second one, he had to come to the pit lane because of that splitter damage. That's what it was. And that cost him a apparent podium. Right now, I don't think he's thinking podium. I think he knows what's at stake. Rob Holland right ahead. That's for the race lead.
Yeah, and he's you can see he's got his spirits up. You can just see in the behavior, the driving here, coming through there, riding that curb there through turn 14. Maybe tweaked on his Aston a little bit. Looks really solid here this morning.
Yes, it does. Archangel Motorsports, the team for Todd Coleman. Mike Johnson brings so much to that platform. Shop based out of St. Louis, Missouri.
Well, Mike has a ton of experience, ex-racer himself, very successful, and just one of the sharpest strategy brains. You don't need a lot of strategy in a 40-minute sprint race, so that's probably on rest right now in terms of that part of his head. But nonetheless, I think with his experience, I've known Mike for a long time. What I like now is just the calmness. I mean, he's always been so competitive, but now he seems to just take things in his stride a little bit. I think that calmness and mentality certainly then soaks down into his drivers that he's got underneath him.
Right now, Todd Coleman is loving life. He drove the Supra last year. He liked it, found it a little bit edgy for him. This transition over to the Aston Martin has been a smooth one. And look, we saw him early in the season at St. Petersburg, immediately on the pace. And right now, he is showing that he's got some chops because the driver he is chasing is no slouch. Rob Holland's been around the block a few times. He's got all the tricks up his sleeve. This is going to be a fascinating battle.
It really is. Coleman is absolutely flying. His fast lap is 8/10 quicker than Rob Holland, so he's got speed in the Aston Martin. Now is the point where he really needs to be spoken to, or he needs to think about the discipline. How hard do I push it? Long way to go in this race. Just past the 12-minute mark into this 40-minute race, so he's got time in hand. But he also recognized if Holland backs up any, he's suddenly going to have Sabo back, giving him attention from the tail of his Aston Martin.
Coleman in the slipstream. Looked like he might have a run building, but we've got a great battle brewing here with some out-of-class traffic to contend with. Daskalos trying to find a way past Shanny. He does throw it down the inside. Kurt's looking to follow. Trefford as well. Trefford aggressively over the curbs, rolls a lot of speed. He's able to get to the flank of Kurt's, but can't quite keep it there.
Wow, he's getting pretty innovative there with his lines there, trying to work over George Kurtz. Kurtz keeps it nice and calm, runs a little bit wide there. Trefford's got to run.
That he does, right behind the reigning champion, George Kurtz. Daskalos has some breathing room now. Kurtz does not. He slides into the inside and is going to force Trefford to go the long way around.
Gets back online on the clean part of the racetrack, importantly for the brake zone and the turn-in point. So Trefford gave it up a little bit, maybe too soon. I think that would not allow George to get back online if he'd stayed more in the middle of the road and maybe had George thinking about who's going to make a move to the inside.
This is the difference coming from historic racing into true wheel-to-wheel racing like this. No one's going to give you a wide berth if you've got to run, right?
No,
you're going to have to force your way through.
There's no after you here.
That's right. And that's the transition Todd is making.
That's no disrespect to HSR or any of the other championships.
But it's just a different philosophy.
It's running a different way. You're out to enjoy the equipment, enjoy the track, have a good race, but you're not going to get your elbows out and potentially damage race cars.
Priceless race cars. Let's put that in
look
context.
at this.
Yeah.
Battle for the lead. Coleman and Sabo lock horns a little bit.
It was 3 wide there for a moment. Does Holland have a problem? Because they're all stacked up behind him. Coleman got shoved out wide. That's going to allow Schwest to come through.
Look at Gables is in the mix as well. They're in P5.
Oh, and Tony is aggressive. If he's got a chance to go race for a position, you know he's going to stick his nose in there. Schwest looking up the inside of Coleman on the run down to turn 1. Whatever was wrong for Holland seems to have fixed itself because he does have some breathing room. Gaples arrives on the scene, but can't quite make a move on Schwest.
Yeah, and Coleman there regroups nicely as well. So there was a little compression there. I'm not sure if you are correct in terms of Holland having some kind of issue, but either way, suddenly it was a 5-car battle for the lead.
It just seemed like a strange place for them to be stacked up 3 wide if there wasn't something that Rob was dealing with.
Yeah, I didn't see any traffic or any slow car involved. Let's wait and see how this evolved here. Here's a replay and look at it. Oh, late move by Coleman. That's
yeah, that
how it all evolved. It just slowed everyone down.
And we just caught it at this point, and look at that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Coleman knew Elias was there or not, but either way, it was a pretty aggressive move there. The stewards will be looking at it, but essentially the cars that he got into continue to run in front of Coleman.
Looked to me like Todd might have picked up some right front damage. I was trying to get a look to see if the dive plane was affected, and I couldn't quite tell. That was not light contact, though.
No. Well, it kind of invites you in there, right? And I say the first sector is really the prime overtaking opportunity, but everyone thinks into 13 is another one, but gets a little bit sketchy as people start to roll speed down towards the apex.
Kurtz survived the challenge from Trefford, and now he's back in hunting mode. He's reeled Daskalos back in. These two, again, first and second in the points last year. It wasn't terribly close, in fairness. George did win by something like 151 points. But Daskalos was just about the only driver that was able to consistently take the fight to George 1 year ago.
Yeah, and unfortunately, driver points aren't like rollover miles with the rear line.
That's right.
You don't carry them forward.
Yeah, that doesn't mean much for George Kurtz here this year, does it? They're going to have some traffic to deal with. Both of these drivers have experience doing that. They've run plenty of races in multi-class environments.
Oh, look at Kurtz there trying to get a run. Daskalos really had to control the momentum through traffic there, and George tried to take advantage of that, and traffic's right there once again.
Well, it's only going to get tougher because you're going to see bigger clusters of GT4 cars as they get deeper into that GT4 field. Kurtz trying the outside. Looked like he might have got in some of those marbles that have been a big talking point because there just wasn't any grip out there.
Yeah, and I think maybe the marbles are not as bad as we saw early in the weekend when the track is what we call green, where it doesn't have a lot of rubber down. That allows the real aggregate of the track surface itself to really be high into these tires, and as you get more and more rubber down, I think maybe the tire deck stuff starts to go away a little bit in terms of the marbling that we've been talking about all weekend, Ryan. I think it should be better, but we did have heavy rains yesterday, so that'll wash the track a little bit at the same time.
Here we go, traffic playing its part. That's Jaffe just ahead in the Cayman from the GT4 class. He's running in the 6th spot right now, so I think a pretty good day in his debut weekend. Right now, though,
George was in there deep.
Oh, and so was Treffert.
Yeah, George thought he had to go inside of that slower car there and took it in there deep, probably got in the ABS, washed out the front end a little bit, keeps it just on the island. And one thing I will say, when we come up on those traffic situations like Dassilow's trying to control the GT4 car, but George Kurtz, he's right out behind that big rear wing of the car in front of him.
Yeah.
You're basically driving blind just on feel there. You can't really see the road, so to speak, so that's a real art in itself.
Now the field makes its way past the 2021 GT4 champion Jason Bell.
Adelson's been pretty quiet in this race there, running in P5 in the green and yellow, number 120 Wright Motorsports Porsche, but definitely hanging with this battle right now. Johnny O'Connell sits back there in the 6th position, the 56 car, about 3 seconds back from the battle we're looking at.
And all of this is happening 9 seconds behind the leader, Memo Gidley, who has the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race at a 37.277, and that is a fair margin quicker than anyone else has been able to manage. But some of that has to do with the fact that everyone else has been stuck in a fight or two. This has been true in GT4 as well. Rob Holland continues to hold the advantage over Sabo. The report from the pits is that Todd Coleman's car is fine despite that contact earlier, but he just hasn't had the pace of the top two since that moment earlier a few laps ago.
Sabo's on the attack here, looking, probing, turn 13, looks to the outside, just carves the corner. Holland is in deep, maybe nowhere to go with it this time. This is allowing Coleman to get ever closer.
Astons do look strong through this part of the track, that's for sure.
See the damage there on the right front fender of Todd Coleman. Hopefully that doesn't come down these front straightaways at high speed. It can tend to separate that gap in the bodywork and maybe create a bigger issue.
Here come the SRO3 leaders through this battle at the front of the GT4 field. This could get very interesting. Kurtz takes a look, now ducks back in line, or does he? Dascalo's trying to pick his way through past Coleman. No one's going to want to give any extra room because they've got battles of their own to deal with.
Big commitment there by Dascalo's, but he gets away with it, and this has really gapped Coleman back from Sabo a little bit, cost him some time.
Yes, it has. This has been great for Rob Holland, at least for now. We'll see if that trend continues. Dascalo's to his inside. Kurtz tries to follow him through, but he can't. Sabo, though, still stuck on the outside as Treffert now comes through.
This showcases the speed delta between GT3 and GT4 machinery just past the halfway mark, and the GT3 leaders are now lapping the GT4 cars.
This is just past the halfway mark. And multi-class racing, it's such a big part of sports car racing. Learning how to manage these situations is what separates good and great sports car drivers.
Yeah, and it's really cool to have that experience. And when you go green, just as I said, with the speed delta, you're going to get it at least once in this race. And with some of the slower GT4 cars, maybe you'll lap some of the cars twice. So that's all part of the learning process for a lot of these drivers who'll maybe hope to compete in more long distance race. This is an opportunity. Sabo goes with it down to the inside of Adelson. Boy, oh boy, big commitment there. Adelson opened the door. Sabo took it and took Adelson at the same time.
I have no idea how they made that work. They did everything but crash. Somehow, all three emerge on the other side, and the big winner is Elias Sabo, who goes to the point.
Wow, Adelson, I think, was just trying to get inside of Holland, just kind of keep him out there, and Sabo said, no problem, I'm going to take that opportunity, and just plowed it down the inside. Look at this develop here. This is turn 12, Adelson there, middle of the road, just tries to slow things down. Sabo said, I'm going to send it. Big commitment. What a race.
Well, let's give Adam some credit there, because if he didn't see that coming, that could have had a much different outcome.
Yeah, I don't think he anticipated on the inside. He was just trying to control the lap car to his outside at that point in time.
It's not every day you see the GT4 car dive bomb to the inside of the GT3 car in one of these races.
Sure, Elias will clip that little piece of video.
Oh,
and have
yeah.
another look.
And that's one for the highlight reel. Not just a cool pass, but for the race lead. just past the halfway mark. And this has not let up at all, but now it's down to a mano-a-mano matchup between Daskalos and Kurtz. No traffic looming at this stage.
Yeah, and traffic, with that traffic situation, it's dropped back about 1.5 seconds from Kurtz. So this allows George just to focus forward, not worry about opening up the door as he tries to work the racing lines here a little bit to see if he can create a situation to get by Daskalos in front of him.
And that is Daskalos' teammate, Treffert, that's running right behind. Not sure how much he can help at this stage, but any pressure that Todd can apply to Kurtz is some of the focus that Kurtz has to focus away from going on the attack himself.
Yeah, like about the gap, it was 1.5 seconds, now down at 0.6 between Kurtz and Treffert. So that's a totally different dynamic.
Gidley continues to show the way, 14 seconds clear of this battle for second, third, and fourth. Adelson running a quiet fifth, Johnny O'Connell sixth, ahead of Schultes, Wilczek. Bartone, recovering from his drive-through penalty, has gotten around Vogel and is back up to now he's up to 8th, actually, just past Wilczek on that lap.
Kurtz here just really tries to create opportunities to straighten his hands, gets back to power a little bit sooner. Tough to make enough of a jump there coming off of turn 4 before you swing into turn 5. Treffert, he's going to be a factor here. Don't be surprised to see Treffert make some moves here.
I think George is pretty close. How aggressive does he want to be? Not this time, kind of lays back to time this run through the S's.
See the marbles there offline as you went tails away there through turn 10.
Kurtz took a peek. A little more shallow entry a couple corners back. It cost him too much. He's right there, just doing his best to fill the mirrors of Daskalos and maybe force an error.
Treffert may have laid rubber there as he squirted out of turn 13. Fun track though, great rhythm. Very raceable, just great line opportunities through some of these sectors just to try and keep the tires a little more calm.
Offers a wide variety of different corners. This section through here is pretty tight. Low speed stuff, need to have the torque off the corner. But those S's are fast, they are high commitment. And I imagine as the tire wear starts to creep in, that becomes pretty sketchy.
Yeah, and there's also some different configuration options open to this racetrack and to the championships that run here, and some of the competitors have been talking about opening up some of those S's, more of a straight line approach. I think IndyCar ran it in that configuration many years ago, and what that would do, takes away some of the challenge of the circuit, but may create a better overtaking opportunity down into turn 13.
It also takes away a corner, because when IndyCar was here, it was like a 15-turn circuit. This is a 16-turn configuration. Slightly different length to that layout too, as you would expect. This one 16 turns, 2.75 miles through the Louisiana swamp country.
There you could see where the track would actually come straight into that brake zone there. Sure, 13, we've seen some moves, but it's always a little bit right on the line, right, between success and failure.
It takes cooperation from both parties, and you get deeper into the race, and there's less and less willingness to cooperate.
That's right. Daskalos just digging deep. Got to be frustrated with the pace of Gidley, who now leads by 16+ seconds. Incredible dominance here this weekend for TKO Motorsports and Mamo, but nonetheless, we're enjoying this battle for second and the final podium finishes.
Oh, and again, we talked about it yesterday, having veterans like Gidley who are eligible to race in this series, basically because by regulation you reach a certain age and your driver categorization changes accordingly. But it gives a baseline for someone like George Kurtz, who is not a professional racing driver. His profession is elsewhere, but he's very enthusiastic and committed to this and improving his craft. To have someone like Mamo Gidley to compare yourself to chase, to learn from, there's an inherent value in that.
It really is, and also for a lot of these competitors, they use this race as just more seat time as well. For the Fanatec GT Championship, for George Kurtz, for example, for other competitors in the GT4 category are going to be pulling double duty here this weekend. So it really fits, but what it has evolved into is a great race.
Yeah.
I really love this race every single weekend. I look forward to it.
Well, and for those that have followed this championship in its various guises over the years, there is something of a throwback feel to it. The sprint race, the single driver, no pit stops. And that's what World Challenge in the US was built on for decades. It's fun that there's still a place for it within the SRO umbrella.
Treffert there looks menacing.
He does.
Trying to figure out where can I maybe make a move, because George is just working this racetrack over, working his car over, trying to figure out how he can get by Daskalos and get the bigger points position in P2. It's going to be a tough sled with Gidley, just seemingly so consistent and amazing speed. Here we go. This is a battle for P2 in class. Holland and Coleman. Coleman to the inside. That's turn 15.
Able to grab that spot up to second despite the wounded car. At least visually, the team says mechanically everything is still sound for Todd Coleman. So the pole sitter Rob Holland drops back to third, but he's got to run. That Porsche pretty stout in a straight line. What will Vogel do in the GT3 Porsche? Very wisely, I think, settles in behind. Holland trying to roll the outside, but increasingly it is tough to get any purchase offline as those marbles continue to build.
Yeah, it looks good for a moment, and then you just can't finish the deal. Coleman now has that P2, so it's an Aston Martin 1-2. Porsche fills out the final podium spot. A little bit of rubber going down there as Holland tried to accelerate. Oh, Vogel, that was aggressive. Didn't really feel that one out, just really forced the issue, and now goes for a ride.
This is the driver still very much early on that learning curve, Alex Vogel. Limited experience racing at this level. Didn't quite read that traffic the way he'd like. I'm sure he'll learn from this one. And fortunately, I don't think it cost Coleman anything.
Yeah, fortunately. Just big commitment here by Vogel down to the inside. He gets into that right front fender that's already been damaged earlier in this race. He just needs to feel it out. I mean, you just need to be a little bit more subtle and calm with that maneuver.
Into the final 10 minutes of this race. Let's give a shout to Elias Sabo. First of all, the move to take the lead, and since then, he's put his head down, has been pounding out laps. That will help him to build the gap. Contretemps that we saw just a moment ago, but even before that, it was over 2 seconds. There he is, Elias Sabo in the 511 Tactical sponsored Aston Martin. Oh, and a spin from Treffert. He was having such a great day. That's from 4th place. How much will that cost him? That was O'Connell going by, so that would apparently drop him to 6th, and this is how it happened.
Yeah, goes to the outside here, then tucks it back to the inside. Yeah, George was just trying to set up Daskalos, so I think maybe close the gap just a little bit. Didn't do anything wrong, but enough to turn Treffert around, unfortunately.
Adelson and O'Connell, the beneficiaries, they gain positions from that. And I suppose George, to some degree, is also a beneficiary because he doesn't have to think about defense anymore. He's purely on the attack now, looking for second, as he has seemingly all race long.
Yeah, fantastic battle. Duking it out here for that P2 position. Gidley continues to extend that gap at the front. Mercedes lock out of the podium at this phase, with Adelson now running in P4 and in a Mercedes and the Ferrari of O'Connell in P5.
Surprisingly quiet day from Adelson.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Yeah, he's been on fire literally this season, and this is seemed to be a race where he's just, oh, look at this. Kurz just trying to eke to the inside there on the acceleration run out of turn 2. Trouble is you're kind of having to be a little bit more patient with your throttle application so you don't get in the side of the competitor alongside you. So Daskalos looking a little bit vulnerable here with about 7.5 minutes to go.
George Kurtz probing for a weakness that he can exploit. It looks like he just has a bit more traction. He can take those aggressive entries into the corner, and it doesn't compromise his pace too much. Working over Jason Daskalos for second.
CrowdStrike Racing, Bill Riley will have been turning on the knobs and trying to get this car a little bit sharper here for the last phase of this race here today. Looks good so far. George certainly has the upper hand right now, has to manage this situation. Two fierce competitors.
I've seen him take that look at the entry to the S's a couple of times. Not sure it's a genuine attempt to pass, but certainly something just to get there, get into the mind of Daskalos just that little bit more.
They're just trying to figure out a way. They're just climbing over the curbs in different manners, each and every lap, just seeing if there's a little bit of grip they can find that extra punch coming out of one of these corners.
Again, these were the two that dueled for the championship last year. They had some good battles, but it did kind of feel that Daskalos was fighting with an arm tied behind his back, running that older Audi. Now he's on the same playing field. He's got the same car, and he can go toe-to-toe with George Kurtz.
He can. And it's fun to see, you know, because we've seen him put in tremendous performances in that Audi, but a bit like Johnny O'Connell right now aboard that Ferrari went, ooh. Daskalos was in trouble. Now we're just seeing these cars just visually, momentarily stall out. They're just not like firing it through the corners and rolling speed like they were earlier in the race. And I see that and I think, oh, there's a technical issue. No, it's just the car's not gripping up at the same point as it did earlier in this race.
While we watch the battle for second in SRO 3, this is the car second in GT4, Amanda. What's the update on Todd Coleman?
Well, last lap by, he did have pace against Elias Sabo, but it was a couple laps ago that he actually connected with one of the SRO 3 cars, got the OnlyFans car of Alex Vogel, got into the side of that 69 Aston Martin, said they're dealing with some braking issues, but hoping it can hold on to the end.
That's never fun. Thanks, Amanda.
I see the fender obviously dislodged. I'm not sure if it's affecting any of the cooling to the right front brake and wheel assembly there, but nonetheless, I mean, it's been a really solid weekend for Todd Coleman. I think today's race showcased his speed even more, so might be frustrated, but he was really in the mix for the win here today, but still a few minutes to go.
If he can hang on, it would match a career best finish for Todd Coleman. Finished second at Sonoma in race 1 last year in his partial season campaign for Smooge Racing. Man, this has been good for 36 minutes. There's been no let-up, has there?
No, traffic up ahead, yep. So it looked like this battle had calmed down a little bit, but maybe now this traffic up ahead that Daskalos is going to hit first may give George an opportunity.
First is Keebler, who's running towards the back half of the top 10 in GT4. That's the TR3 Aston they're passing. And just ahead is Gray Newell, who's had a quiet weekend for Heart of Racing, a team that's been incredibly busy this weekend. Had a kind of unexpected appearance at Spa in the World Endurance Championship race yesterday.
Going to give them the entry at Le Mans as well.
Correct.
So big things happening with Harder. Oh, this is a big moment in traffic here. Kurtz has got to manage this one. See if he can fire it off through the second part of these S's. Here he goes. Looks to the inside.
Side by side. Kurtz to the left. Daskalos to the right. Kurtz gets the job done. Sweeps across the bow and then clears the GT4 traffic of Gray Newell as well.
That was awesome. Opportunity was there and George just took it.
That is the sign of a driver who has done plenty of multi-class racing in recent years. Let's look at it again.
See this one evolve. Just big commitment there. Just time to, oh, maybe a nudge. Maybe a nudge. Little bobble there nonetheless for Daskalos. Couldn't quite see it visually from the shot that we had there. But and then Daskalos had a big slide through turn 15 trying to get back up on the wheel.
Kurtz did not have a good start to this season. Not classified result in race 1 at St. Pete and an 8th in race 2. Was on the podium in both races at Sonoma, just off the podium in 4th yesterday. So he needs to start putting together some of these points if he's going to defend that crown.
Yeah, frustrating start. He got wrapped up in that turn 3 incident on the opening lap at St. Petersburg, and with not getting a lap under your belt, that means you're starting on the back foot for the next race with fast lap counting for your grid position. Tough to pass on the streets of St. Petersburg, so not the start of the campaign, but bounced back nicely with solid results at Sonoma, as you mentioned.
We saw a shot at Memo Gidley a few moments ago, the leader overall. The leader in GT4 is Elias Sabo. What a great drive he's put in. Got shuffled back a little bit early on, kept his head down, made some bold moves in traffic to take the lead, and he has not looked back since.
Coleman's a little bit quicker, but the gap is too big now with their time running out. Coleman's going to come out of this race weekend with a ton of confidence, though, moving forward.
As far as I can tell, this would be a second career win in this championship for Elias Sabo. The first came in race 2 at Sebring, in which he won from pole and set the fastest lap of the race. That was last year, race 2 at Sebring.
Top-notch organization, Flying Lizard.
Yeah.
Stephen Costello, who I actually worked with when I first came over to the States in the mid-'80s. He was my mechanic back then. Is now a team manager with this GT4 side of their operation.
And Owen Hayes is engineering all of these cars. Owen is a name you might recognize. He worked on the RS Spider, LMP2 car that Penske ran back in the day. Longtime Porsche employee, split off to do his own thing a few years back. And whenever he shows up, you know the cars are going to be well sorted.
Yeah, he's a smart fella, that is for sure. Brings a lot to the table if you have him under your awning for the weekend.
Into the final minute of this race, Elias Sabo has not drawn away from Coleman. In fact, Coleman has been closing in, brake problems or no, but it's still 1.6 seconds. That's going to be difficult to overcome in the time remaining. And the overall leader is coming through behind them. That's going to dictate how many laps they still have to run.
Yeah, but he's going to get by them at the same time, so he'll get the white flag and they'll get passed by then, so they'll see the checkered flag next time around. So it should be one lap for both the GT4 and the GT3 leaders to complete this race.
White silk in the air in the hands of Tom Hansing. 1 lap to go at NOLA Motorsports Park. Memo Gidley looking to sweep the weekend and pick up his 4th victory on the young season.
Amazing. And I think initially when they got the Mercedes, they weren't quite sure what made it tick, but they've really got this car dialed in. Been a phenomenal weekend. He said he didn't like the car immediately, but boy, once they got to qualifying yesterday, he has made his mark here at NOLA.
Dave Traitel, the T-Motor, TKO Motorsports. Unfortunately not here today, had some surgery recently. Expect to see him at Circuit of the Americas. Wish you were here, Dave, but congratulations. It's been a nearly flawless weekend. Hope I don't jinx it here with just a half a lap to go, but I'm sure he is smiling a big bronze smile watching the man he has invested so much in to give this opportunity to get back behind the wheel, Memo Gidley.
Yeah, he's a motor racing enthusiast, and he just loves Memo Gidley's story and the opportunity that he's now given him to have this new lease on life, and his racing career is phenomenal.
Let's be clear, it would not have happened without the support of Dave Traitel. Following all the rehab after that Daytona 24 accident, nearly 10 years ago now. Final lap of the race, Gidley in control. Treffert trying to recover from his spin that we saw a little while ago. This is a battle for the final step of the podium that was starting to break out in GT4. We'll keep our eyes on that, but for the moment, a clean sweep of the weekend here in NOLA for TKO Motorsports and Memo Gidley. The win in GT4 goes to Flying Lizard and Elias Sabo. Coming across the line to take second in SRO3 is George Kurtz. It's Todd Coleman in GT4. Rob Holland holds off Ross Schwest in the charging Jason Bell to take the final step of the podium in the GT4 class. So Holland, Schwest, and Gaples, as well as Bell, although Bell actually was a few laps down, so not actually in the mix there. Apologies. There is Owen Hayes. Very happy group celebrating a big win. Flying Lizard also involved in this car as well, although headlined by TKO Motorsports. Fantastic outing for that team.
It really was. Good to see Johnny O solid top 5 for Ski Autosport there. So I think they learned a lot from this weekend and looked a little bit sharper and better race pace over the long run here for race 2.
fastest lap of the race, the CrowdStrike fastest lap, belonged to Memo Gidley. So pole, win, fastest race lap, that's about as good of a race as you can have.
Yeah, and the person who got closest to him was Anthony Bartone.
Huh.
Only 2 or 3 tenths off there, so that young man is certainly making some statements this season.
Yeah, it didn't go his way. Something on the pre-grid, some kind of infraction caused him to take a drive-through penalty. He did recover to 6th, but to your point, based on that, he would have had the pace to mix it up at the front.
Yeah, just probably need to clarify that. It says driving standards. We initially heard it was a pre-race issue. He did have a penalty from yesterday. I thought that time penalty was awarded to yesterday's results. We'll have to get that one clarified. Either way, that drive-through hurt his result today.
No question about it. And for Elias Sabo, I believe, 2nd career win in GT America, powered by AWS. Another one of these drivers that just seen the racecraft improve leaps and bounds with each successive year spent racing in the championship.
And he'll have a big smile.
Oh yeah, always does. Is as passionate about this as anybody you'll find in the paddock.
Like the Danny Ricciardo with less hair.
Hey Elias, that was Calvin, not Ryan. I think your hair situation is just fine.
You're not going to back me up in this?
Well, you're not wrong, but I wasn't going to bring it up. I'm a little sensitive to that. I think that's my future.
So when the door knocks on our TV cabin, you're
That's
going to
right.
let me answer it?
That's
Okay.
right.
All right.
Oh, man, fun race weekend for GT America. Debut for the series here at NOLA as well. This was not on the schedule last year, but certainly it's becoming a favorite for much of the paddock. Get a chance to spend some time in downtown New Orleans, which is always a good time. And the racetrack has proven to be a hit as well. Big, big weekend for Memo Gidley with a pair of wins. Fun stories in GT4. So popular win for sure with Sabo today and hard-earned. But Ross Schwest winning yesterday. This is his home track. This is where he's from. That was a cool story, too.
Very much so. Solid weekend for Schwest and that whole group. Schwest Povolato Racing. Big points picked up once again.
Let's take a look at results from our second race of the weekend. And it was Memo Gidley, George Kurtz, and Jason Daskalos on the podium, it would appear. 3 Mercedes in the top 3 spots. Adam Adelson plugged along, and he'll turn around and go back to work. A number of these drivers are going to be busy later on this afternoon in Fanatec GT, the 90-minute race that's coming up this afternoon. Bartone, Schultes, Wilczak, Vogel, Treffert at the back of the SRO 3 field. Then we get to GT4. Elias Sabo, maybe the move of the weekend to take the lead in traffic to the inside of a GT3 car, no less.
That was wild, a wild move. Beautiful stuff, and he kept that lead all the way to the checker.
Coleman matches a career best with 2nd place, and Rob Holland, who has been a podium machine in this championship over the years, locks home another. And look at the celebration. That is Elias Sabo. Oh, you can see what it means to win in GT America. This is going to be an interview we're going to want to save.
He's pumped.
And why not? These don't come easy.
No, that's cool. So much passion in this paddock, and the effort that it takes from everyone to be here and compete at this level.
Pirelli GT4 America co-driver Andy Lee, that's right. Pouring the water down the back of the suit, and I think Amanda is standing by with our winners.
Oh, let's not lose any time in this moment. Elias, you've been celebrating since the second you got out of Aston Martin, and I know you're going to go back and look at that highlight of that overtake on Rob Holland and a GT3 car. You bounced back from last season. You bounced back from yesterday's miscue. How did you keep your head in it?
Yeah, had a good night's sleep last night and just knew I was doing a lot of good things here all weekend. I was running first in the practices, ran first in qualifying. Had a little mistake yesterday, but that happens. It's racing. And so today came in, was very focused. Got to give Adam Adelson probably a bottle of wine after this. He had a great attempted pass on Todd. They both got wide and I was able to slip under. So just a really good, clean race today.
For all of us, when you make your way over to the winner's circle and people are jumping up and down, what is that feeling like for you inside of the car?
You know, this sport is the highs of the high and the lows of the low. Yesterday was the other end, today is the high of the high. And when people are jumping up and down, I want to do the same thing when I get out.
Well done, Elias. Well, someone else that is, be sure to jump up and down. Just a fantastic weekend. A sweep set, Mamo, I know this one's going to be one for the books for you and what you're going to take from the memories made here, but you always give credit to your team. And before you even made it over here, they were high-fiving themselves on the celebration. To share in these moments with this and in these memories, what's it like?
Well, you know, there's so much work that goes behind the scenes where the TKO crew, the Flying Lizard crew, they put together all this to make it happen. And yeah, I'm out training and driving my go-kart and physically trying to be ready, but there's so many details that they work on. And so I just know the effort because I've been there, done it myself, and I appreciate it so much. And it's just, sometimes you have these awesome weekends where you can't do anything wrong, and that's us this weekend. We just nailed it right on the head. Can't thank TKO Motorsports enough.
You had built a 13-second lead yesterday. At last look, I think it was almost 15 seconds here today. How are you gelling so well with this Mercedes?
You know, it's just, and the track as well. You know, this was a new track for me. We came here and tested. And, you know, even after testing and the 2 days of practice here, I never really felt comfortable around here. And then I started figuring out a few things line-wise, and it just showed. And then the Mercedes TKO car, it's like a glove now that I've worn a number of times. So it just feels so comfortable every time I get in there. And, you know, this is why we do it, to try and win. And just hope everybody appreciates everything that's going on.
4 times a winner this season.
Thanks.
That's right. 4 wins, 6 podiums in 6 races. Hard to do much better than that. Phenomenal stuff from Mamo Gidley and company. He wins in SRO 3. Congratulations to Elias Sambo, the winner in GT4. So long for now from NOLA.